it, or had the trust in me as someone who was unestablished in the space, or had kind of the foundation to bring someone on to do something like that. And then eventually I talked to one that was in the position. Everything kind of checked out. It was just the right place, right time. And he said, it's definitely the right place and right time, but I have a lot going on specifically over the next 2 months. So I'd like for you to reach back out to me in 2 months. And so I put it on my calendar, literally like scheduled a reach back out on my calendar. And I did reach back out, and he stayed true to his word, took me on, brought me on specifically to help in that position. And that was the end of 2023. So that became official kind of end of 2023 / beginning of 2024. Here we are. It is late July of 2024 now. I started with him doing that at the beginning of the year and have been helping some of the businesses that he's trying to sell in the meantime in different capacities, helping him kind of build out some of the processes within his practice. And then an opportunity presented itself where his home office told him that they wanted him to have a little bit more support because he's been doing a fantastic job, honestly. He's in like the top 3 or so of his brokerage nationwide, and he's been really killing it for them, but you can only do so much as one person. So they wanted him to hire someone to help support things more. And he said, well, I've been working with Brody for a while. Why don't I just bring him on? And here we are.
Wow.
It's been quite a journey.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still kind of racking my head on those numbers. I mean, I believe you because I think many of us have done the thing where we're trying to reach out, but hundreds trickle down to 50 or so, and then still to one.
Let me break it down a little bit, because this is the thing that people get caught up on. Mm-hmm. They hear something like that and they're like, oh, well, that sounds like too much work for me. And in reality, it honestly wasn't much work because of the way I did it. I basically used like a technology that would reach out to people every day on my behalf, like the initial reach out, with just a greeting and a connection request on LinkedIn. And then if they accepted the connection request and they accepted the message, then it would reach out to them again a few times over the course of a few weeks until they actually responded. And then if and only if they responded, then I would have a conversation with them. As soon as they responded, I take over, I become a human again, have an actual conversation. So I was able to reach that volume of literally reaching out to hundreds of people very quickly without actually spending all my time doing it. And so I was doing other things, educating myself, reaching out in other ways and going to networking events and doing all kinds of stuff. But I had this running almost like it was an employee on my behalf in the background, so that I was connecting with people and generating opportunities regularly. And I think that having things like that running in the background for you, I'm actually emailing people right now as we speak about something else entirely because of technology. And we're able to do that in 2024 very easily with a little bit of money and a good strategy. And I think that it's really important that people know that there are opportunities like that and ways to do things like that through technology and AI, because that helps you get into doors that you maybe didn't have the time for or the opportunity for otherwise. And it was really only because I was able to play the volume game and, like you said, reach out to hundreds and hundreds of people. But then the hard work really came in the dozens that I talked to, the 50 or 60 that I did talk to, because then I would have to do the work of actually taking over and having a real conversation with them, usually in the LinkedIn DMs at first. And then I would just try my best to transition that into some kind of Zoom call or phone call and say, hey, let me tell you about it, tell you about my experience and what I'm looking to do. And the other part of that is I became very, very honed in on a specific kind of elevator pitch, if you want to call it that. So I got really good at telling what my story was, what my background was, in a way that I thought would appeal to what I was trying to pitch to them. And I would hone in on the specific experience that I thought could help me with these business owners. And I got plenty of yeses, some no's. Some people said, hey, I'm just not interested in that. But honestly, it was a good pitch. It was a good offer. It was completely risk-free for them at the time, unless they thought that I was going to take their business or something. And so eventually, I talked to enough of them, and like I landed on this one that I talked to, amongst many, many that said yes, they were interested, that was actually like, let's take this seriously. And the thing that's really helped us develop the way we have is that he had a little bit different structure than the rest. His team was already fairly built out. I was probably at the time number 5 or 6 on his team, and he was running a morning meeting every weekday with his team that he invited me into as part of this. So I was able to get in, start going to those morning meetings, and actually really learn the way that he was practicing and spot this opportunity and be able to jump on it when it came. And so that's basically how it progressed. Like you said, it was a lot of numbers. It was a lot of work and a lot of volume, but I think it takes that to really find the best opportunities.
Just the numbers are staggering, but I mean, it shows a dedication to the craft where you said, I could just Control C, Control V to people, but I need to be doing other things. This is not my full time yet, so I need to use my time smart. And you found those tools, which I think even people like myself who are aware of them don't even think to be utilizing them to that extent. So that's incredible that you managed to leverage it really kind of at the almost the boom of the AI channel, really. So one of the things that you said was that you had to develop your elevator pitch. And, you know, coming off of, you know, being in school with your MBA, coming off a second business sale, and trying to basically, I mean, you were representing Scale for Sale, correct? And you had started that during the program.
Mm-hmm.
So coming off a fresh business during a program and also off a business sale, how was developing that pitch and coming into the arena as an expert, essentially?
Well, the more I learned about the subject, the more I realized I didn't know. So it's been a humbling process, to be honest. Even today, I feel like I know less about it than I felt like I did when I started out, which is kind of weird and counterintuitive. But honestly, I just had this kind of blind confidence about me. And so I just put together, you know, I was like, I had this experience. A lot of people didn't have this experience. The people that haven't had the experience, I can at least help them with what I've experienced. And so I kind of put together this idea of like hypothetically what I would help these business owners with. And then I found out that the brokers seemed like the best people to reach out to make that happen. And the elevator pitch itself probably started out very crude and crass and unrefined, especially because of how much I didn't know. But I basically just said, hey, like, I believe that you have this problem where there's some people that come to you that aren't ready to sell. And you probably have experienced that when that happens, you aren't able to do anything for them. Would it help you if someone were to come in and prepare them so that you could actually sell them for more? And they were like, well, yeah, of course it would. It was about finding a no-brainer offer for them. I wasn't asking them to pay me anything. To this day, I have never taken any kind of base pay for this associate broker position. There's no base pay associated. And there's been no base pay with the guy I've been talking to since the beginning of the year. There's never been a base pay for me. It's all commission based. And so anything that he pays me is found money for both of us. It's money that didn't exist for him, for the organization, if I didn't generate the opportunity. And if you're willing to put yourself in a position like that, you can get yourself in way better doors, because no one has to take any risk on to bring you on. So because he didn't have to take any risk on to bring me on, it gave me a lot of confidence in the elevator pitch to say, hey, if you let me come on and do this for you, it won't cost you anything, and there's only upside in it for you. And some of them still said no, just because they didn't think that I was experienced enough, or I wasn't convincing enough when I talked to them, or for any possible reason. But I think it just came down to making a no-brainer offer. And if you are willing to put yourself in a position like that as someone trying to break into any industry, I think it's the best way to do it, because you find these opportunities that just didn't exist, and you can get closer to the top rung of things if you don't have to rely on that base pay. Now, I was in a position to be able to do that because of the businesses before, because of selling the businesses before, and he knew that. not everyone's in that position. I think for anyone who's not in that position where they don't have money set aside to be able to cover them for that, I think you have to just find opportunities to do things like this outside of what you already have going on. And that's really the only thing you can do if you're trying to expand beyond this. And that's kind of a practice I've had since probably 2020. The last time I had an actual corporate job, actually 2021 is beginning of and through the end of it, is the last time I had like a corporate job. And while I was working that corporate job, I was doing other things on the side, freelancing, little side hustles, trying to make extra money, trying to like develop myself as an entrepreneur. And you have to do that if you want to do it eventually. You can't people do jump into it fully and just burn the bridges behind them, and people have success with that. My opinion has always been, I think that's too risky and it's not the best option for everyone.
Just the thought of leaving everything, like you said, is incredibly daunting, and I feel like you're more of an applicable situation for a lot of people, where the start is we have these jobs that support us and provide for our families, but we want to break out. So carving out that time is very, very important, like you said. One of the things I wanted to come over and also bring into this was, I think people in every profession feel this way, but imposter syndrome when it comes to jumping into this. I mean, you probably had significantly less of it because you'd done the thing. You did the thing, as they say, and you'd completed it. So when it comes to somebody who maybe many of us haven't sold businesses or haven't been involved in, maybe even some of us haven't been involved in building them. I have some experience in that, but you ground up did it. What would you say to people who are trying to overcome that fear of being like, I don't have any value to bring. I don't think I can do it.
Do more. My opinion on this has changed a lot, actually. I used to think because my experience with imposter syndrome has been severe at many times and continues to be. Like, I'd face it honestly every day. And my first experience with it, what I used to get through it and thought I needed to use to get through it, and what I do now has fundamentally changed. And when I first experienced it, what I thought was the only way to get through it was to just kind of fake it until you make it. And to a certain extent, that's true. But I actually think now that the thing that's been most helpful is just to start doing more. Like, whatever deficiencies I feel like I have that are leading to that imposter syndrome, I just start doing more and learning more skills and trying to get more experience in that thing until I don't feel it anymore. That's really the only thing that works permanently, in my experience at least, because the faking it until you make it is like, it's like putting lipstick on a pig. It's like you can kind of get over it for the short time being, but it's still going to come back if you don't do the work to accumulate the skills and the experience to actually have the thing. And so you have to just start doing the work and doing the thing, but knowing that you're maybe not the most qualified person to do it. One thing that my business partner posted about recently that I think was really smart about this is he said, so many people get stuck on that imposter syndrome and they don't do anything. They have inaction because of it. And then they get caught in this loop of like never getting anywhere because they never do anything. And he said, there's most certainly always people out there in the industry you're trying to be in, doing the thing you're trying to do, that are less experienced than you, that have not as well-intentioned intentions as you, and are still having success in it. So knowing that that's definitely the case, that someone is out there doing it in that position, you should feel a responsibility to get into the pool and start doing it and just make the industry better. Bring your personal experience that may not be at the very top of the level of everyone in the industry, but you got to start somewhere, and you're better than someone doing it.
So a sort of almost an immersion therapy type thing where you say, I feel like I'm not, so I'm going to read, watch, and just talk to as many people until I start to feel like, oh, I understand it now. That's kind of the route that you would say is effective for you, at least. And
start doing the actual work in the thing in any way that you can, even if it's for free. That's what I started doing. And like I literally, like, my first client was unpaid. I took on a client that I met with weekly to help him, and it was unpaid. And it was so that I could accumulate experience that made me more qualified and able to do this. And so much of the work I do now even is unpaid because it just helps sharpen the needle, and make me more experienced in the industry. And I know that in the long term, that's more valuable than getting paid even a little bit now. So you have to do both. Like, you have to put yourself in a position where you're supported financially, but you also have to develop the skills at any cost. And the skills come best through experience.
When it comes to being Brody, and what I mean is when it comes to your own personal self, how do you find the time in this very active and very driven environment that you live in to kind of collect yourself and be more yourself and not business? We'll say business Brody for this because, not that you're a different person, but the mindset.
Tough for me because like business Brody is not even like it's not even like a front or like a character I play. I genuinely do just love talking about it this much, but that in and of itself is a problem because it can turn some people off. It makes it difficult to have like regular conversations sometimes. And it makes it difficult to connect on personal levels if I don't consciously try to claw it back a little bit. And so for me, because I love it so much, I have to kind of like check myself a little bit and be like, all right, like you're being too businessy right now. Like, this is too much and this is overwhelming for whoever you're talking to. Because I genuinely do, like, I could talk about it forever and I never get tired of it. And I don't know how that happened, when that happened. It hasn't always been the case. But I just did so much of it that I came to love it so much. I also tried to force myself to, and I'm really lucky to have an awesome girlfriend that really like makes this possible. But I try to like force myself to do things other than business to like ground myself a little bit, for lack of better words. So I try to have hobbies like going out and going on walks and hikes and stuff like that on the weekends, maybe going out to a brewery with friends or something like that. Just trying to be intentional about that and actually carve out that time. And I like to do things where I'm forced to meditate. I actually am doing this thing called a float tank tomorrow. It's something I've done a couple of times where you go and you float on your back in a tank for an hour in the complete dark and silence. And you just, it's kind of crazy.
What?
You haven't heard of this?
I thought that was a joke.
No. They have one in Baldwin Park. It's called, yes.
It's
you should come with me.
Oh, God.
It's crazy. It's called a sensory deprivation tank. And you literally like, it's this little pod. I'll have to show you a video of it. It's like this little pod that you open up and it's full of water and like Epsom salt. And you just like float on your back into it. And it sounds like the weirdest thing ever, right? And it is. But it's really good for like grounding you. Like, I'm terrible at any kind of meditation personally. And it like forces me to get into this kind of like meditative, grounded, calm state where I'm actually just like thinking about what's going on.
I think, well, based upon your own thought pattern here, and I like to explore all the options as a person, by me thinking, oh, that sounds terrible, that would be miserable, that sounds sensory deprivation, that sounds like a punishment. By your own thought philosophy, I should at some point do that with you, because my adverse reaction was, no way, that sounds like a crazy person thing. I should probably go ahead and do it because that was my first reaction.
I wouldn't say it's for everyone. It's a polarizing thing. Every time I bring that up to someone, they either have your reaction or the reaction that I had. Or like, for me, I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. That sounds like it could like force me out of my comfort zone a little bit. But 90% of people that I tell have the same reaction as you. They're like, what the fuck did you just say? Like, why would I ever do that? I don't know. I wouldn't say it's for everyone, but if you like getting out of your comfort zone and growing, and you struggle with meditation and you find value in it but struggle to do it, that's what drew me to it.
Interesting. Okay. I meditate every day, and I like to think I'm fairly good at it, in the sense of I've gotten my mind to wander less, and it's a routine for me. But that might be a next level type of thing where I'm like, well, I can do it at home. I can do it, but can I do it in a different environment? So that's it. We'll have to talk after this is over about, setting that up.
It's fun. I've done it 2 times now, or 3, maybe 3 times. I've done it at least 2 times, and it made me want to keep coming back. Like, if it's a little pricey, I will say. I got 2 of the sessions as like a birthday gift, and then I got a discount on the first one. It's a little pricey, but I find a lot of value in it personally. And because it's kind of pricey, I value it a lot when I do have it scheduled. I really put a lot of intentionality about what I want to get out of a session of it. And I think if you use it that way, for me, it's been worth it.
So this is another good segue because, again, this episode is focused on not only the celebration of what you've achieved, but also what kind of mentality you bring to the table that has built upon this. So when it comes to waking up in the morning and that kind of, we're not going to go through a get ready with me, obviously, but like the mental aspect of waking up every day in this sort of, like you said, you came to these guys with you don't pay me a dime till I get you a result. Like, when you wake up in the morning, how do you set yourself up for that day of like, oh, we're going? How do you kickstart that?
For me, it hasn't really been a kickstart. It's been like a very gradual thing. It was really, I've had a lot of periods during this time of like, still like up until very recently, I've had a lot of periods like of very deep ebb and flows where it's like a bit of an emotional roller coaster, honestly, where I don't know if it's going to work out. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. I don't know if I've made the right moves or if I could have made better moves. And during those times, it has been more difficult to wake up motivated. And I kind of just have to check myself and say, like, the work still needs doing, whether I feel motivated or not. And I've been lucky enough to just have really good people in my life that help reinforce that and that have incredibly strong work ethics. And for me, whenever I'm feeling a little bit of a lack of that motivation and struggling in that aspect, I try to just put myself around those people a little bit and hope that it rubs off a little bit. And that's been one thing that helps me when I'm in a little bit of a rut, is just putting myself in contact with those people that have better work ethics than me, that have success, like that I'm aspiring to be like. And then I find myself becoming more like them. And where else was I going with that? I'd say, like, up until recently, that there was a lot of ebbs and flows. More recently, I've found more focus and more consistency and felt more level with the whole thing because I see more of a light at the end of the tunnel. And for a very long time, I didn't know exactly what my plan was with this whole thing. I just knew it was the next step and I was going to try something. More recently, it's all come together and I know exactly what I'm doing and what the plan is for the next 5 years or so, if not 10 or more. And so that gives me such a clarity that when I do wake up in the morning, I'm like, I know what the plan is. It's just about doing the things that are part of the plan. Versus before, it was, I don't really know what the plan is, so I'm going to take this piece of spaghetti, throw it at that wall, and hope something sticks at some point.
It's funny that we brought that up because you just described what we talked about, I think, a week or two ago, which was this fear of the unknown that we all have, and we kind of, like you said, the ebb and the flow, and is it going to work? Is it not going to work? Oh man, what's going on? So I think a lot of people can sometimes look at social media and say, oh, they're doing X, Y, Z. They don't really feel that, but I think it's, somebody like yourself who is working in it, we feel it every day, and specifically you also have felt it in your career. I mean, yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure, still feel it. So I think, we've gotten, this is, I could talk about, ask you questions all day about yourself, but I guess to kind of round this one out for this episode, I guess I'll use my best reference point. Talking to Brody, who started his MBA program, very different than Brody, who ended the MBA program. Not talking about with 3 letters. Quite a lot changed. What would you say if you were to sit down with him and kind of talk to him about what's going to happen those next 2 years? Because it was a rocket ship for you.
Yeah. Wow. I would tell him a lot of it's going to suck. It's going to be really rough. You're in for the biggest emotional roller coaster you've ever been on. And at moments you will think there's no way it's going to work out. At moments you will think that you've made all the wrong choices and that everything has been for nothing. And at other moments you'll be at the top of the world. And I would tell him, when you're feeling down and feeling like it's not working out, try to have a little bit of hope and trust yourself a little bit more. Have some faith in your own abilities and what you're working on. And in the moments where you're feeling on top of the world, check yourself a little bit. Bring some more humility, because that ego is going to be responsible for some of the mistakes that you are going to make. And I think the more I get into it, the more I realize you just have to keep yourself level. You can't reward yourself for successes. You can't punish yourself for failures, because the more you do, the more volatile it gets. And that volatility is the enemy of consistency. And consistency is the only thing that gets you where you're trying to go.
Wow. I probably wish I would have heard that at the beginning of my program too.
Yeah.
How it went. Also,
what about you? Because you went through the same program, and I would say the same about you. It's a total difference. I think there's there's a more zen Ryan that's come out the other end.
Well, I mean, I literally said I'm going to leave my job and my family and move across the country to go do an MBA program at a school that I've never been to. So there was definitely
What made you decide that?
When I looked around, I mean, I think I heard this recently. New Jersey is New Jersey is the place where, you know how there's certain places in the world where people are like, I live in a small town, blah, 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 and I got to get out. New Jersey is that small town, but it's the entire state, and everybody just you either want to live and die there, or you want to get out as fast as possible. And I wanted to also prove to myself that I was good enough to do more than what, I had done with my family and their businesses. I wanted to prove this was a skill. And I just dropped everything, literally emptied my savings account. I got scammed on a moving company. I lost over $10,000. That's, yeah, they got me good, because I did not do my research on the moving industry. I would say don't play up the character too much, because there's a New Jersey Ryan who has a character to play. Be vulnerable with people. Don't just kind of don't play off what you're thinking or what you think you should say, and really make sure you're forming meaningful connections with people quickly, because I think, well, I don't like to think back on it, but I certainly was very much like, I don't think they'll want to talk to me about this, or I don't think I should approach them about this. And I probably missed out on some pretty cool opportunities and maybe career options that if I had just talked to somebody and said, hey, I'm really interested, could you talk to me more about this? They probably would have just said yes, but I was in my own head too much. So that's probably for me the big ones is be open, be honest, and don't try to push things off with a character when you feel uncomfortable making those comments or whatever, or concerns of hurt. So also probably just don't mess with the PowerPoint when it's finished. Don't mess with the slides. So I think that's going to be a great episode for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I certainly had a great time talking to Brody and learning more about his story. Some of it I knew, a lot of it I didn't. So Deal Flow will be back, obviously doing more deals, talking about the flow of them. And I think we have a pretty cool segment for the next time that we were talking about before this.
We do. As a little preview, we are going to be picking out some specific industries and doing something we don't usually do. Can't give too much more than that right now, but it'll be something you'll want to tune in for, stick around for, and something that you'll learn a lot from, maybe even more than some of our other episodes. And if it goes well, we'll continue to make it a recurring segment. But this has been Deal Flow Live. I've been your host, Brody Vinson.
I've been Ryan Santo.
And tune in every Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to catch the